October 1st to November 15th, 2024, 47 days. During this period, 37.6 million ounces of silver vanished from COMEX warehouses, nearly half of all registered silver stocks. Gone. This isn't normal market activity. This isn't gradual depletion. This is panic buying at industrial scale. This is the largest vault drain since 1980. And the price on your screen barely moved. Paper prices say everything is fine. Physical vaults say the system is breaking. Why the panic? Because on January 1st, 2026, China flipped a switch. Quietly, no press conference, no dramatic announcement, just a licensing system activated at midnight. And with that switch, 400 million ounces of refined silver per year disappeared from global markets, permanently. Western technology companies are discovering they cannot buy the metal that makes their products possible. Samsung requested 50 million ounces, found 5.2 million. German solar panel manufacturers receiving cancellation notices. Japanese battery producers watching supply chains disintegrate. This isn't a supply disruption. This is economic warfare. China controls 60 to 70% of global silver refining capacity. It takes 5 to 7 years to build new refineries, and China just told the West, if you want silver, move your factories here, build on our soil, or watch your industries die. This is finance through time, and this is the story of how China weaponized the element that makes modern technology possible. 37.6 million ounces. COMEX registered stocks. The physical silver backing futures contracts. The metal actually available for delivery. Nearly half of it gone in 47 days. Understand what registered silver means. This isn't speculative inventory. This is the real metal that validates the paper market. When futures contracts demand physical delivery, this is what gets shipped. When the registered stocks drain, the paper promises become questionable. Someone is taking delivery at unprecedented scale. Industrial buyers, technology manufacturers, companies that actually need physical metal for production. They're draining American vaults because their normal supply chains collapsed. And those supply chains collapsed because of what happened on January 1st, 2026. China implemented a new export licensing system for refined silver. Sounds bureaucratic. Sounds like regulatory paperwork. It's actually a complete export ban disguised as compliance. The requirements are impossible. 80-ton minimum processing capacity, $30 million in registered capital, standards that eliminate small and medium exporters entirely. Only the largest state-connected entities can even apply. And those entities aren't exporting. Result, 400 million ounces of refined silver that used to flow from China to global markets now stays in China. Allocated to Chinese industry, Chinese manufacturers, Chinese technology companies, the world's largest silver refining hub just closed its doors to foreign buyers. German solar companies started receiving emails. Orders canceled. No explanation. Just sorry, cannot fulfill. Japanese battery manufacturers watching contracted shipments disappear. South Korean electronics giants scrambling to find alternative suppliers that don't exist. Because China doesn't just refine its own silver. It refines everyone's silver. Ore gets mined in Peru, Mexico, Poland, gets shipped to China for refining. Used to come back as pure silver bars ready for industrial use. Now it stays in China. The West suddenly realizes it outsourced not just manufacturing, but the critical processing infrastructure. You can mine silver anywhere. But turning that ore into usable industrial-grade silver, that capacity is in China. And China just nationalized it through licensing restrictions. Samsung needs 50 million ounces. They make phones, tablets, electronics. Everything requires silver, conductive traces, switches, batteries. Not optional, not substitutable. Silver is technology's blood. They go to COMEX, the commodity exchange, where futures contracts promise physical delivery, where industrial buyers are supposed to source metal. They request 50 million ounces. Standard industrial purchase for their production needs. They get 5.2 million, 10% of their requirement. The rest doesn't exist, not at current prices, not in available inventory. The vaults are empty, the supply chain is broken. This creates an impossible situation. Samsung has factories, has workers, has orders, has everything except the raw material that makes production possible. Can't make the products, can't fulfill contracts, can't operate without silver. They're not alone. Every major technology manufacturer is facing the same crisis. Apple, Tesla, Panasonic, anyone making electronics, batteries, solar panels, electric vehicles, anyone dependent on silver for industrial production, all discovering that the supply they assumed would always exist is gone. The paper market says silver is available. Spot prices around $30 per ounce. Futures contracts trading normally. Everything looks fine on screens. But try to take physical delivery of meaningful quantities. Try to actually buy the metal your factory needs. It doesn't exist. This is the unobtainium phase, the point where price becomes irrelevant because availability disappears. You have money, you have demand, you just can't buy the product because it's not for sale at any price. And why can't you buy it? Because building new refining capacity takes 5 to 7 years. Minimum. That's if you start today. If you get permits. If you secure ore supplies. If you build the facility. If you commission the equipment. If everything goes perfectly. 5 to 7 years. Samsung needs silver today. Tesla needs silver today. Every manufacturer needs continuous supply now. They don't have 5 to 7 years. They have weeks before production lines start shutting down. This is why COMEX vaults drained in 47 days. This is why registered stocks collapsed by nearly half. Industrial buyers realize the Chinese supply is gone. American vaults are the only remaining source, so they're taking everything available before someone else does. Musical chairs. The music stopped. There aren't enough chairs, and everyone's scrambling for the few remaining seats before the game ends completely. This isn't accident. This isn't market dynamics. This is calculated geopolitical strategy. China knows the West needs silver, knows it's irreplaceable for technology, knows manufacturers can't operate without it, and China controls the refining, controls the processing, controls the supply, so they're using that control as leverage, not to sell silver at higher prices, to force industrial relocation, to make Western companies choose between shutting down or moving production to China. Tesla wants to make electric vehicles. Each vehicle needs 3 times more silver than combustion cars. Battery systems, power management, charging infrastructure, all silver dependent. And China just told Tesla, build your factories here or watch your supply disappear. Apple makes phones. Each phone needs silver, screens, circuits, batteries. Cannot manufacture without it. And China controls whether Apple gets that silver. The implicit message is clear. Want guaranteed supply? Manufacture in China. Under Chinese regulation, paying Chinese workers, contributing to Chinese GDP. This undermines every Western attempt at industrial policy. America's CHIPS Act tried to bring semiconductor manufacturing back domestically. Europe's green energy mandates require massive solar panel production. These policies assumed raw materials would be available. They're not. China's silver export restrictions make domestic Western manufacturing impossible. You can build the factories, train the workers, create the policies, but without silver, the production lines don't run. And silver flows through China. This is economic coercion through resource control. China isn't invading countries, isn't threatening military action, isn't imposing sanctions. They're just controlling a critical industrial input. And that control is more powerful than any army. Because you can't bomb your way to silver supplies. You can't sanction China into releasing refined metal. You can't negotiate when you have no leverage. The West is discovering that military superiority doesn't matter when you depend on adversaries for industrial inputs. China has 70% of global refining capacity. They're sitting on the infrastructure bottleneck. They control the choke point, and they're squeezing. The message is simple. The green energy revolution requires silver. The technology revolution requires silver. The Western industrial base requires silver. And China controls access to refined silver, so either the industries move to China or they don't happen at all. Checkmate. Without firing a shot, without invading territory, through patient infrastructure building and resource control, China positioned itself to hold Western industry hostage. And they just activated that leverage. Paper markets tell comforting lies. Futures contracts say silver is abundant. Spot prices say everything's normal. Analysts say markets are efficient. Screens display numbers that suggest no crisis exists. Physical reality tells a different story. COMEX vaults drained by half in 47 days. Samsung requesting 50 million ounces and finding 5 million. German manufacturers receiving cancellation notices. Chinese export licenses creating supply deserts. The gap between paper and physical is exploding. You can trade silver contracts all day. Prices move. Liquidity appears normal. But try to convert those contracts to actual metal. Try to take delivery. Try to get the physical silver your factory needs. It's not there. This is the fundamental break. Paper markets pricing assets based on supply assumptions that no longer exist. Physical markets experiencing scarcity that paper prices don't reflect. Eventually, this divergence resolves violently. Either paper prices spike to reflect true physical scarcity, or paper markets collapse when everyone realizes the metal backing the contracts doesn't exist. Either way, the disconnect cannot persist indefinitely. China understands this. They accumulated physical silver while the West traded paper, built refining capacity while the West financialized everything, controlled processing infrastructure while the West focused on abstract trading. Now the music stopped. The game of musical chairs ended, and China holds all the seats. The West is left with paper promises and empty vaults. Industrial production requires physical metal. Paper contracts don't run factories. Spot prices don't make batteries. You need actual silver, and actual silver is in China. This is what resource dominance looks like in the 21st century. Not colonial extraction, not military occupation, control of processing infrastructure, control of supply chains, control of the industrial inputs that make modern technology possible. The lesson is brutal. Financialization doesn't create real resources. Printing money doesn't manufacture silver. Complex derivatives don't substitute for physical supply. When the tangible inputs disappear, the paper system becomes irrelevant. The West is learning this now, learning that you can't trade your way out of physical scarcity, can't regulate away dependence on foreign processing, can't sanction yourself to resource independence when you don't control the critical infrastructure. China positioned itself over decades, slowly, patiently, building the processing capacity, securing the supply chains, creating dependencies the West didn't notice until they were total. And now they're exploiting that position, not for immediate profit, for industrial relocation, for long-term strategic advantage, for reshaping global manufacturing according to Chinese interests. This is finance through time. We follow the money to show you that real power isn't in currency or markets. It's in physical control of what cannot be printed, traded, or financed away. So here's the question. What do you think Western governments will do about this geopolitical checkmate? Will they continue trusting paper markets while physical reality breaks their industries? Or will the scarcity finally force them to acknowledge that money can't buy what doesn't exist? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss what happens when the West runs out of silver in time.